It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, and it is time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 277 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am Maction, and I am joined tonight, as with most nights, by my fellow nerd, my connoisseur of comedy, not only the first option, but he's also the best option, Mr. Lam Galuka, also known as Mr. Nice Guy 425, and for the next hour, we're going to cover topics ranging from gaming news to history, trivia, lawsuits, and a little bit of everything in between. But Mr. Nice Guy, before we do that, have you had any good news recently by chance?
I have had some good news. And, it's huge news because, as y'all know, if you listen to the pod, we do the podcast awards every year, the past several years. And the past couple years we've won, but before you can win the podcast awards, you have to get past the nomination stage. And so we entered this year in Games and Hobbies, and they just announced the slate on Monday. And Mac, we made it, buddy. We made it into the running again, my friend.
Hey, look, Lam, we made it.
We made it, buddy. We made
Panic at the Disco, don't sue
it.
us.
And now, it's all in people listening to the pod and voting, and whoever gets the most votes, I guess, from the secret voters wins. And so if you're listening, please consider us. And we appreciate you. Mac, what else do you want to say about the podcast awards?
Oh, man, it's going to be nice again. I kind of love doing this because it feels like, it feels very often like we do a good thing is how I feel whenever we do it. But also, I love when we're on the slate with names that I haven't seen before because it's a good, there's people for me to go check out. And it's like, ooh, new friends. You know what I mean?
Right,
Kind of feels like people that we run in the same circles with. So it's real enjoyable.
Yeah, remember we did a collab with Things I Failed at. Was it Things I Failed at Trivia was the name of their podcast?
Things I Got Wrong at Trivia.
Things I Got Wrong at Trivia.
Yeah, we also did a collab with She Plays Games, which most people particularly know her for her work running Final Fantasy Union, which is one of the really big Final Fantasy YouTube channels. She was kind enough to be a guest on our show, and I just kind of wonder, who are we going to get a chance to collaborate with this time around from the slate? And I'm already ahead of you because a couple of days before the slate got announced, one of the other podcasts from the slate also I was able to be a guest on.
Oh, nice.
Over on Swords and Starships. So that was fun.
Oh, fantastic. We got to check out that episode.
Yes, indeed. It's the one about the Super Mario Brothers movie. So we talk about that. And it's just an awesome... You got it right there, Ishmobile. It's just an awesome time all around. I love the award season because of the camaraderie, I think especially.
100%. And that was probably the coolest news that I got, Mac. Personally, life is, it's always good. Maybe I'm just an optimist. We had some family came into town last night, and we had a blast. So I smoked up some ribs. You should have been here. They were amazing. We've had my ribs before, right, Mac?
I have, and have had some smoked cheese from your smoker. It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. So we did that, and then I was working today, but my wife and kids went out with the family, went swimming, and went on a hiking trail, and now they are gone. But it was great to see them. And now life is back to normal. But, Mac, what is new with you outside of the podcast awards? What's going on, man?
I live a rather uninteresting life.
Stop.
But one very cool thing did happen, and that is that I shifted from one work schedule to another, and this work schedule is a lot more conducive to being married. So I'm spending a lot more time with my spouse than I was in the month of July, which was, kind of rough. But it's good to spend time together again. So I'm glad I wasn't stuck on that shift for a long time. So I'm just particularly grateful for spending time with people I love.
Fantastic. Well, Mac, speaking of things we love, we both love video games. And I say we do what we do best and talk about that thing we love and hop right up in that gaming news, my friend. What do you think about that?
Let's do it. Tell me, Mr. Nice Guy, what is new in video gaming? Because I feel like I've been out of the loop lately.
So much. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 277 is a go. Let's start with news about a remake that's coming. This is from NintendoLife.com. Well, you know what? I've learned not to read the titles because the titles are redundant and they're often the first line of the article. So let's dive into the article. This is by Liam Doolin on NintendoLife.com. Rockstar lifted the lid on a Red Dead Redemption port for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 earlier this week, and one of the major talking points since then has been the $50 price tag, US dollars. Some fans feel it's simply too much for what appears to be a relatively simple port that's actually missing content, although Rockstar is referring to this particular release as a new conversion. Now, speaking to IGN, Rockstar's parent company Take-Two Interactive has defended this price point. Company CEO Strauss Zelnick mentioned how this amount is believed to be the commercially accurate price for a release like this. He also mentioned how the add-ons Undead Nightmare added great value to this particular package, although he didn't confirm whether or not that was the reason behind the price point. So, Mac, to give you some context, Red Dead Redemption originally released for the Xbox 360 and PS3 back in 2010. Red Dead Redemption 2 obviously came out in 2018. It's a prequel, so those who maybe just played Red Dead Redemption 2 can now go back and play what chronologically came after that game. But the price point is $50 for a game that's being ported 13 years later. What do you think about a $50 price point for a port? And I don't think this is new. What do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think it's not especially new. To be fair, we have seen some ports that have been incredibly lackluster and full price. I think the Grand Theft Auto trilogy port comes to mind.
Yeah.
I believe it was it also $50 or was it even more?
I think it was, I'm going to fact check it, but I think it was either 40 or 50, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so something of generally around the same price point. And while granted it was 3 games and not just one game, it was still very rough. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, in theory, a $50 game, but is it going to give you $50 of fun?
Well, just to get to that fact check, the GTA trilogy, $59.99 at release. And what I would say about Red Dead Redemption, the original, at the time I played it, which was probably 2011, I think, is when I played it, it was one of my favorite games of all time. It's, content-wise, you're getting a lot. It's simply that it's an old game that's being ported rather than remastered. They're really not adding any effects. It's just going to look a little bit better and be made for modern hardware. Now, here's my question for you. I don't think we've ever seen any backlash like this as Skyrim was constantly re-released. Or even as certain Nintendo titles were re-released.
Except for me constantly putting Bethesda on blast for constantly re-releasing Skyrim and hyping it like it was a big deal. You're right. I'm the only person who's ever objected to the re-releases. But no, I mean, just generally, I'm first and foremost particularly interested that video games as an art form, as an expression, are able to be played. And it feels a shame to run a close to full price for a game that's going to be ported, that there is work that goes into the porting process, no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
But so long as the company has held on to the source code, the porting should be a relatively low stakes, low input thing. And maybe some programmers out there disagree, and I'm not seeing things there, but I know that it's not as much effort as building a new game from scratch. But then again, till we see it, we won't know how much has changed. I think that will sort of inform whether or not we perceive this as a cash grab or as a valuable thing, but it is nice that we'll be able to play it. Now, Red Dead Redemption 1, I've never played. I'll throw that out there. But also, I don't know how accessible is it currently, Red Dead Redemption 1. Are there options for playing it but for this new porting?
100%. You could, I mean, the discs are not that hard to find, number one. And I'm pretty sure it's still available on storefronts. Like 90% sure that you could still purchase it on, a PS3 or Xbox 360 storefront. And with backwards compatibility, I'm pretty sure you could still play that game on your Xbox current gen, your Xbox Series X. So this is simply like a minor graphical.
But now we get it on the Switch.
Correct. And I think that's the big thing, is Rockstar games have traditionally not been on the Switch, which bodes well for Nintendo, as they've recently announced the Switch 2. It'd be cool to see if going forward, maybe they start to get those Rockstar releases at release. I think that'd be huge for Nintendo.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say about this, for those who are disappointed that there's not multiplayer, there was no way Rockstar was ever going to put multiplayer in this remake or in this port. They don't want to split the Red Dead Redemption 2 community. Additionally, they're not even really supporting Red Dead Online anymore. They've moved all their efforts to Grand Theft Auto Online. So the idea that they would port an old game and give you online multiplayer, it was just never going to happen. I'm sorry. And I wish that they would, but it wasn't going to happen. So moving on, Mac, let's talk about what I think is probably our favorite device, one of our favorite devices. Let's talk a little bit about the Steam Deck. This is on PCGamer.com, and for some reason, there we go. It's written by Jacob Ridley. Here is what he writes. Okay, and there's an update to the article. So here's the original story. Valve may start selling officially refurbished Steam Decks in the future, according to new data found in the Steam database. Listings marked certified refurbished have appeared for all three models of Steam Deck, 64 gigabytes, 256, and 512 gigabytes, and there are even preliminary prices for an idea of how much you might have to pay to snap one up. Now, spoiler alert, Mac, he's since updated this article because Valve has confirmed they're going to do this, and they are now officially selling refurbished Steam Decks. It says these models were added yesterday, August 7th. The store names swiftly changed to the more generic unknown app shortly after, and the descriptions were removed. But Mac, bottom line, here is what the prices are for these certified refurbished Steam Decks directly from Valve. $319 for your 64 gigabyte, $419 for the 256, and $519 for the 512 gigabyte. So, Mac, my question for you, with Valve, well, first of all, what are your thoughts on this refurbished Steam Decks? You're smiling already. Like, what do you think about it?
Fantastic news. Obviously there's some amount of, hardware out there that people are going to return because maybe they don't feel like it was worth the price. I certainly have been pleased with my Steam Deck so far, but also Valve has been very good about providing the various bits and bobs, the pieces that we needed to repair our Steam Decks ourselves, so it would make total sense that they would be flush with the parts. And no, this is just terrific. And I think it also bodes well that they are providing refurbished ones. It kind of makes me feel even more so like that's another step in the chain of look how much Valve is behind this product.
And that was actually where I was going to go with my question, not whether this is good or bad, because I think this is phenomenal, right? They're trying to increase their install base, and they're trying to provide things at a reasonable price that have been used. So my question for you is, with them trying to get this into more and more and more people's hands, do you think that we see, 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out, the Steam Deck 2? Or do you think that they're just trying to get rid of some inventory? And I want to give you some context real quick. So Starfield is coming out September 6th. And it recently was announced that Starfield will not be Steam Deck verified, simply meaning it doesn't meet the highest standards of performance, etc., for the Steam Deck. And I don't think the Steam Deck is becoming obsolete, but we were never going to be able to play every release on it. So knowing that we're now getting games that can't really be properly played on the deck, do you think that they continue to support it since we're seeing all these refurbs going out? What do you think? PCs become obsolete, right? Tough question.
Yeah, I mean, eventually tech will always fade a little bit into obscurity, but I I am still rocking a video card from basically 2016, and it's still doing just fine. I've recently replaced the power supply that was in my desktop that I had since I think 2012 or so. So more than a decade of no, it was 2008. It was nearly 15 years of service. There is an extent to which I'm like, yes, stuff wears out, things need to be replaced eventually, but yeah, too early, I think. I don't think they're starting to do the phase outs or get rid of these things yet. But maybe, like you said, they're increasing the installation base, getting ready for that Steam Deck 2 that's coming down the line in maybe 5 years.
That's what I would hope. I don't know about 5 years, because I think that they still want people to be able to play somewhat AAA titles, somewhat new AAA titles on the deck. Starfield is a big one. And honestly, it's disappointing that it's not going to be Steam Deck verified. But I don't know. I just don't think from like a research and development standpoint, from a product development standpoint, that they come out with another deck for at least another 2 years. And I look at like Facebook Meta and how they did with the Oculus. Like they put out the Oculus, a couple years later you get the Oculus Quest and then the 2. I think that Steam Deck will follow a similar timeline, more so than PS4 to PS5, 6-7 years type of thing. That's my thought. Mac, one last question, and it looks like Ishmobile agrees in the chat. One last question. I've been looking at a lot of videos of Steam Deck upgrades, right? We talked about those shells that just came out where you can completely change your deck. If there was one hardware upgrade you could do for your deck, what would it be? There's a lot of stuff out there.
One hardware upgrade that's very easily within my grasp is I've been meaning to get a dock for it, so that I could play it on the television and, have it running. But as for a upgrade modification style, I think I would love to extend the battery life, because when I play something like Subnautica or some other games that are actually 3-dimensional, that battery seems to go much faster than I'd like. But, and I see what you're saying, Ishmobile, with an OLED screen, I feel like that would go counter to my hope of extending the battery life. I'm cool with the resolution. I know a lot of people would prefer something different. I just want longer battery life.
Yeah, I get you. For those talking about OLED screens, I don't know if it's an OLED screen, but there is a product in the works called Deck HD. It's deckhd.com, and I have joined the wait list, and they're talking about putting out a 1200p screen. I don't know if it is OLED, but it is an upgrade, and so that'll be coming out shortly, and I'm debating doing it. I think it's $99, which for a screen for the deck I don't think is crazy, but you do have to install it yourself. So just so people know, that's in the works. Mac, we have so much news out there, but those are really the main things I wanted to talk about. I will say, to those who are Pokemon fans, happy Pokemon Day. There were some big announcements today. New DLC coming for Scarlet and Violet. A couple other things announced. So for those of you like our good boy Spennis, who's into all that stuff, congratulations. But for the sake of time, Mac, that's our news for the week.
So I will just put an addendum and say that Ishmobile has set me right that the OLED screen should pull less power, about half, which I'm all for. Give me an OLED screen, especially if it's going to do half the draw on the battery.
Love it.
Now that we've taken a look at what's going on around us right now, let's take a little look into the past. In the years that have gone before this week, we've seen some fantastic releases, and just want to shine a light on a couple of them. Back in '08 for the Xbox 360, the release of the game Braid. Now, I didn't play this one till it came out for the PC, and I was a little bit behind on that, but I quite loved Braid. The pacing, the style, everything was good. Mr. Nice Guy, is Braid a game that you've played before?
Yeah, and I played it on the Xbox 360 at your recommendation. I loved the mechanic of being able to rewind time and fix mistakes that you had made. It was just like a nice, cozy game, but it also made you think. I liked it.
Yeah, same here. I liked how every chapter there was a slightly new mechanic, some things that you couldn't rewind, some things that you had to rewind, all those, a ring that you could localize, slow down time,
Keeping it fresh.
all those fun ways to keep things fresh. A couple more that I've got in 1993, this last week, which would wind up being a big week for you and me, for the Super Nintendo, Super Mario All-Stars.
Love it.
Absolutely fantastic. It's hard to improve on perfection, but yet Super Mario All-Stars, all the games, and and the inclusion of lost levels. That's when we got lost levels in the United States. And a game that I have cursed the lost levels. There's especially this one spot near the end where you kind of have to like run, do a jump, and kind of bounce off of the back wall to get to a pipe that's underneath a ledge.
Dude, Mario All-Stars, one of the first games that I paid for with my own money. I remember, I didn't buy it at launch, but I remember me and my brother, we spent probably, it was like $20 or something. It was on sale. And we were young. We like opened our piggy bank. We counted up the money. We went to our local Sears. Our mom drove us, and we got Super Mario All-Stars, which is crazy because we probably had access to at least 2 of those Mario games on the NES, but wanted the better graphics and wanted lost levels, and it was just phenomenal.
To go back to what we were talking about earlier, there's something to be said about a good port. So it can really make you pull out that piggy bank.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Mr. Nice Guy, one that I know is near and dear to your heart, 1993 as well for the Game Boy, Link's Awakening.
Oh, man. That is one of my favorite Zeldas of all time. And in fact, we're reviewing, Mac and I, a game right now that has a lot of similarities to Link's Awakening. And it's such a nostalgia hit for me. I think part of the reason I loved that game so much is because Link was portable, right? You could play a little bit before school. You could play it in bed. Like, you didn't have to be in front of your TV, but you could go wherever. And then there was this little glitch you could do, Mac, where if you pressed select as you were moving from screen to screen, it would make you teleport to the other screen. So you could kind of cheat a little bit. You guys have to Google this if you don't know. And you could get to places that you shouldn't have been able to get to early in the game. So it was just kind of a fun mechanic.
That's fantastic. I was today years old when I found out about that. So thank you, Mr. Nice Guy. Well, let me paint a picture for you on this next one. Also released in 1993, but for the Sega Genesis. A little game called Rocket Knight Adventures. Now, I know that Genesis was one of my consoles, but this is one of those that we would definitely call a hidden gem, as it's like a really solid game. Nice Guy, have you heard of this one before by chance?
Yeah, is this the one you're like a cat or something in like knight's armor?
Yeah, you're a possum in knight's armor.
Yeah. I have heard of it, and the reason I've heard of it, I'll be honest with you, is because I was Googling Sega hidden gems as I've been game collecting. And I got a little bit of playtime in with this one, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, you ask yourself, what's better than a sword? A sword and a jetpack. And that's Rocket Knight Adventures. It plays a little bit like everything. A little bit of Golden Axe, where, you have to beat up the enemies before you can go to the next screen. A little bit of, Aladdin-esque. You want a shooter level. There's several that are kind of play a bit like Gradius, however you're supposed to say that. And then, of course, you want some underwater levels. Bam. You want a minecart sort of level. He's got you covered. It's sort of a little bit of all the stuff, and the sound and the design itself was done by a combo of Contra composers and people who worked on the Contra games, as well as the absolutely incredible woman who was responsible for Symphony of the Night, the music for Symphony of the Night. So the soundtrack, with a couple of exceptions, because they do, there are a couple of places where it does get a little bit samey in the boss music, But apart from that, it is really solid hits. So yeah, a good one. I'm glad, Mr. Nice Guy, that you've gotten some time in with Rocket Knight Adventures. And for the rest of you, what's your excuse? It's fantastic. And it was this week in 93. Man, 93. So many hits this week.
Right? What a time. What a time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Indie Game of the Week. And shout out to Ishmobile for the Prime sub. We appreciate you, brother. A segment where we talk about a game that we think may need some more attention and decide whether or not it does. Now, Mac, this is one where, Mac and I like games, but we don't all like every game.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally we'll get some offers to review stuff, and I'll say, Mac, should we review this? And Mac will say, I wish him the best. This one's not for me, right? And vice versa. Sometimes I don't feel like the game is for me. This is one that I reviewed only. So I'll give my thoughts. And Mac, you can ask me questions about what I thought if you'd like to. So, Mega City Police, this is on Steam. Currently on sale for $12.74. Default price is $14.99. Release date, July 28th, 2023. Shout out to developer Undreamed Games and publisher Ravenage Games for providing this code for review. Will not affect my opinions. Here's what it says in the description. Retro wave skill-based action roguelite about tough cops fighting crime and keeping peace the old-fashioned way. Choose your cop and dive into hardcore action against enemies and bosses using a huge arsenal and special abilities that will define your playstyle. The law will make crime bleed. Currently rated very positive on Steam, 140 reviews so far. So this is actually getting some attention. Mac, twin stick shooter's not really your thing, right?
Not really. In rare occasions, it does okay for me, but yeah, generally the twin stick shooters. I don't know. I got burned by Smash TV back in the day.
Understood. It ate too many of your quarters. I understand. Well, speaking of old school games though, Robotron. You ever tried Robotron?
I don't recall ever trying Robotron.
That one's a classic. It's like it's held up okay. It'd be worth looking at. But anyway. Mega City Police, I put several hours into this game, and it's exactly what it says. It's a roguelike twin-stick shooter. If you've ever played Enter the Gungeon, or a game like that, where it's top-down, you're literally going around shooting different enemies. There's a lot of different guns. There's a few different upgrades you can get to things like health. You're collecting money so that you can do more damage. There's different challenges when you get to the end of each level where they say if you can beat the next wave with no damage, you get extra money, etc., etc. There's boss battles. There's no real progression in terms of you've done a run and now you've upgraded your overall health. It's kind of like you start back from zero every time, but the enemies aren't challenging enough that it really makes a difference. One of the things that I really liked about this game is the diversity of weapons. There's a lot of different types of weapons to fit your playstyle. The only issue is that you really just get them randomly. So it's not like you can pick a starting gun and say, yeah, I'm going to play this way this time. It's kind of like, oh, I got a gun I like. I'm lucky. I'm going to try not to die now, right? So that was one thing. The other thing I really liked is it's not the same levels every time. So if you've ever played a game like, what's a good example? Cave. What's that game Ishmobile gifted us? Cave.
Cave Blazers.
Yeah, Cave Blazers, or any game that has some procedural generation. There's a certain level of procedural generation here, and that the levels aren't all the same. So I like that. I would say this game is probably, no disrespect to the developers, it's more of a $9.99 type of game. You're not getting a ton of depth from this. The story is as basic as it sounds. You're going around, you're shooting stuff. But I will say it's perfectly optimized for the Steam Deck, right? If you want to pick up and play something, get a 15, 20-minute game in, depending on how long your run lasts, this is the game for you. But there's no depth within this game, in my opinion. Yes, there's different characters, there's some unlocks, but it's very, very straightforward. And sometimes that's what you want. You want comfort food. So, Mac, that's really what I've got. What questions you got for me, man?
Well, I was going to say that does sound like kind of a bummer that you can't find a play style, a weapon that you like and stick with it. but, I guess it's not without precedent. I mentioned Contra a little bit before, and that's sort of the thing. If you're not careful, you're picking up that darn laser or that darn flamethrower, whatever, in the original Contra.
Right.
Do you have the option to, get rid of a weapon that you pick up that you really don't like?
You do. So, let's say, and you could have 2 weapons. At one point, I feel like I had 3 weapons.
Oh.
So I don't know if I picked up an upgrade that let me do that. But yeah, you can pick up a weapon, and then if something else pops up that you like better, you can just exchange it and drop the other one. So in that regard, yes, you can. You start off with a little pistol by default, and that's kind of your main gun. The other thing to make note of about the characters is that the real diversity in the characters is simply one has a certain amount of health, one has a certain amount of speed, and then there's a certain amount of damage, and they just kind of mix up the stats between those 3 things.
Yeah.
So one will have 2 bars on each of them. So so it's very, very basic in that regard. I don't know how much strategy really goes into this game as opposed to just shooting stuff and trying not to get hit. I never ran out of ammo, and I'm not complaining about that, but typically that's something that can be used to make a game more challenging, and this game didn't really do that. So once again, diversity of weapons, great. I think this game is okay, if I'm being honest. It's not going to win any Game of the Years. I don't think it will be in my top 5 indie games of the year when we talk about it. But it's a good game that's comfort food on the Steam Deck. And that's what I have to say, Mac.
Well, now that we've taken a look at this game, let's take a look at something that's up and coming, perhaps. So let me start by saying this.
Okay.
This is by JE5U5 Studios. I guess Jesus does leet speak now. So let me start by saying that I, Mac, and I'll only speak for me, I am a theist. I follow a Christian religion, and I spent 2 years proselytizing, knocking on doors for J-Town, as the youths call him these days. But this is a bit too rad for my tastes. So what is this? It is a project to be built as a sort of interactive Bible museum. They're hoping to go for $10,000 to go ahead and make this, and it's $10 is the starting tier, the starting reward tier. Now, there are a couple of different people involved. Titus, who is the ideas man, and his son, or the entrepreneur, and his son, Justice, who is the lead programmer. Also, Justice, as is very clear from the video, is a child. I'm not casting any dispersions. There are very clever and very motivated youths out there. But I don't know if there's child labor laws wherever they are. Regardless, there are some shots fired across the bow with the use of air quotes around science and how they're going to show you how the universe really started. I will point out just briefly here, that they do sort of besmirch the today thousands of children are being taught that we came from monkeys, among other absurd air quotes science. Now, just for those of you who skipped that day in class, we did not come from monkeys. We have a common ancestor, very, very far back, but still. Someone's usually being a bit disingenuous when they throw that one in there. Maybe they didn't read the book. Who knows? Clearly, they are more in touch with J-Town and what he wants, because the ultimate goal here is to share the truth with everyone, and they believe that this is a creative and effective way to do so. I have more thoughts, and I could carry on, but Mr. Nice Guy, I'm curious if you have anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, this is tough because I am very religious, and I don't want to bash on anyone else's beliefs. I guess I just question whether or not this is the medium that they want to use to get those beliefs across. I'll be honest, I hesitate to really comment on this too much because I'm legitimately confused as to what they're hoping to do here.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like what they're trying to do is get people to play the game and learn about whatever they think concerning the creation of the universe. Is that fair?
Yeah, but also such such fun events from biblical history as you can wander in Eden, survive the flood, and fight Goliath as things that are mentioned.
So yeah, I mean, like it's weird because I don't want to be a hypocrite here and say that video games aren't an awesome way of getting a message across. Like, I think about some of the most awesome experiences that I've had in gaming and some of the most amazing stories that I've ever experienced that have come from video games, right? I don't think that this is the way to get a religious message across.
Well, Mr. Nice Guy,
That's my opinion.
you and I might both be a little bit out of touch with the youths, but I think that that Jesus Studios, JE5U5, sorry, is more in touch with the youths because this project is being built in Roblox.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, so there is a part of me that I'm just like, this isn't even necessarily, you're not building,
Right?
Creating the game, the engine, the things. You are making a, basically a map pack.
A mod.
And a mod for Roblox. And I'm sure that also takes time, takes effort, takes energy. This is the first such project I've seen kickstarted for a Roblox project in Kickstarter. So, I mean, I don't know. I've probably just missed previous ones, perhaps. But I did find that to be very interesting.
So can people profit from Roblox creations? I legitimately don't.
And
And that's something we'd have to research.
as far as I'm aware, there is a marketplace for content on Roblox where people can sell their mods, their customized things. So yeah, so as far as I'm aware, you can make, and Ishmael's helping us out, Robux is the name of it, that you can make money on Roblox. Now, I don't know how it works converting that money from Robux into other dollars or other currencies, but presumably that is a thing that can be done. They do promise that if everything goes well, we've accomplished significant milestones in our project, including the finishing of the Portal Center, which is to be sort of the hub where you will go to the different mini games essentially from there. Additionally, we are nearing the completion of our first quest, Flood Frenzy: Escape the Flood. This captivating demo will be accessible once we fundraise $5,000. So if you would like to have a go at the demo, just let's help them get to $5,000 so we can see what the rest of the game will be like.
Mac, I mean, let's just be honest here. This is terrible. Like, this is not a good idea. We see mods all the time that are awesome, and people are making them for free. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be paid for their work, but I think that this is a little bit silly. And I'm reading about the Roblox rules. You have to be at least 13 to make money. I don't know if the guy's kid is 13 or not.
I would guess he is.
Shout out to them for preaching what they believe. I don't think this is the platform to do it.
Yeah.
And if it gets made, I hope they, are happy, but I don't understand why there's a Kickstarter for this or why this exists.
To piggyback off of that, it's like, yeah, maybe, I mean, Super Noah's Ark was great, but granted a little bit light on the Christian themes, and maybe there should be more of that out there. I respect you for putting together what you think, what you want, and being a part of the change that you want to see in the world. Good for you. But the thing that I would just caution is that Kickstarter, you should have more than this. And I know this is a thing we come back to all the time, but a slick video or a wall of text, is not what you need if you want to ask us to put some money down on an untried, untested product or project. The demo, you should not have launched before you were complete with the first section of your game so that people could try it out. And I don't know what the connection between we'll let you try the demo at $5,000 raised and it being complete is, but there should be it should be here, try it, and then go from there. Who am I? I'm just some dude on the internet who clearly has it in for J-Town. But what I don't have it in for is I don't have it in for anything in for Justice, who is the lead programmer and is doing it. Dude, keep on keeping on, man. If this doesn't work, keep on trying, keep on making video games and doing things that you love in the way that you love. And don't let a cynical old man like me tell you how to do it. Reach for the stars. But for my part, if the question's kick or kick start, cynical old me says kick.
Yeah, I say kick as well. Once again, I like what Ish Mobile said in the chat. Like, it's really, really cool that there's a kid who is learning to program using Roblox. But I already said my thoughts on this. Kick, wish you the best. Well, cool. Now it is time for Nerd Flex. A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the hosts, and you never quite do.
Except for sometimes.
Except for sometimes. You get us every once in a while.
Oh, and just in case we've got anybody new who's listening for the first time, every about fourth episode or so, we turn the tables back around on you. Normally, you guys are giving us the trivia, but we put in a mystery sound, usually about here, for you to guess and get back to us on social media. If you know the correct mystery sound, we send you a nerdy little present, lovingly crafted by my hands and sent to your door, and there are a bunch of them that are still unclaimed. But today is not a sound test episode, but just so you know, there are unclaimed ones out there.
Sure are. Well, we already have a question in the chat, and the way this works is if you're here live, you have a job to do. Let us know what multiple choice gaming related question you have in the chat, and Mac and I will use nothing but our noggins to try to answer. So here's question number 1 from Ishmobile. Mac, would you do the honors for us?
Absolutely. Ishmobile asks, in Deep Rock Galactic, which of the following is not a playable class in the game? A, Engineer, B, Driller, C, Scout, or D, Medic? I've never played Deep Rock Galactic. I'm looking your direction, Lom.
I know, and I should be ashamed if I don't get this right. But I know Engineer is a class.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Medic is a class.
Mm.
Drilling is something that every character can do. Like, that's the point of the game, is to drill down and find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Scout is a class. I'm trying to think what classes I have played.
So I was just going to say the way I leaned was that Scout was not a class. But then again, that just seemed like the odd man out to me. But then again, never played it, never seen anybody play it. So just a total guess.
I know Engineer is one. I think Gunner is one because I played Gunner a lot. I actually don't know if Medic is a class.
Mm-hmm.
Scout may be, and I think Scout may be the one where you can throw little like zip lines that your characters can go on. I think.
Oh.
I'm leaning towards Medic, actually.
Okay. I mean, I'm perfectly willing to go with you because, you could say any of them, and I'd be like, yeah, sounds
right.
true to me.
Let's go Medic. Final answer. It's going to be Scout. But I'm going to go Medic final answer, I believe. I believe it's Medic.
I'll go with you. Woo! D, Medic. The other three, along with another class called Gunner, are all in the game. Lom,
okay.
You brought your A game today.
I got lucky. I brought my D game. My D game. Hey, jinx. Well, cool. Let's get... Oh, hey, we got another question. I think some of these are coming from the Ishmobile family, which is great. In Project Zomboid, what is the name of the TV show that can teach you important skills if you tune in at the right time? Ooh, he's been playing a lot of Project Zomboid. Home Mechanic, Life and Living, I think he meant to say DIY skills, or Protect Your Home.
So, I haven't played Project Zomboid in a while. I know that you can learn stuff from books. I seem to have a vague recollection that Protect Your Home was the television program on there. But it is a shot in the dark, and I would be very surprised if it was 2D answers in a row. but protect your home is the thing that sounds familiar to me.
Just thinking about it, it can teach you important skills. I almost feel like it would be Life and Living, but I don't know. I've played this game, but I've never tuned into that show. And we should all play it together. I think it'd be fun. But Mac, what do you want to go with? You pick this one.
I feel so unconfident in Protect Your Home, especially because it's 2 D answers in a row, that Life and Living sounds pretty good to me.
All right, let's go with B, Life and Living. Final answer?
Woo!
No
You did
way.
it! Life and Living,
You
which
did it.
teaches skills like cooking, carpentry, and first aid. It plays every day at 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. for the first couple of weeks. Well, I assume, there's still electricity and things like that going on. Awesome. Mr. Nice Guy, entirely because of you, we are 2 for 2.
We are 2 for 2. And I think that we are going to go with the test bank for the third question. Okay, here is the question. It's a Konami question. Which Konami game has a classroom edition to combat childhood obesity? Which Konami game has a classroom edition to combat childhood obesity?
I have absolutely no idea. I'm intrigued, I suppose. There's a part of me that wonders if it was a game that you got to do kind of like Just Dance or something, but that the classroom edition meant that they gave copies for free to classes or to schools. So Konami, I guess Dance Dance Revolution is my guess.
Is that a Konami game?
I think it's a Konami game. Now I'm questioning everything I've ever thought.
I think you're probably right. Why don't we go? Let's just go with it.
Sure.
And I think you're right. Maybe it was they've got one they can give, to the teachers or to the PE that can help combat obesity. So let's go with Dance Dance Revolution. Final answer. Dude, you are a genius. It's Dance Dance Revolution.
No, it can't possibly be Dance Dance Revolution.
I'm dead serious.
You are punking me. That can't be what it's serious?
It is. Google it. It's legitimately Dance Dance Revolution.
Okay.
I gotta see the classroom edition. I bet it's a collector's item. That has been Nerdflex.
On that high note, as we've gone 3 for 3, let's turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
I am not a lawyer. I just play one here on a podcast. And we actually, in contrast to previous weeks where, we've got craziness in the Billy Mitchell, or we've got class actions that are going on, or all that stuff, this was actually a pretty tame week with respect to lawsuits, but obviously they influence how we play games. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about one of the first ones, Atari v. Amusement World. This happened back in 1981, and it's one of the first video game lawsuits. In addition to concepts like, can video games even be protected under copyright law, there's a whole bunch of sort of Wild Westy type things going on in law at this time. Quick editor's note from Mac. Unfortunately, I misspoke at the beginning of this segment, which sort of makes the end of this segment not make that much sense, as I realized. But because of the magic of editing, I can go ahead and say it right this time so that I don't confuse everybody like I did when we were doing the live recording on Twitch. So if it sounds a little bit different, this is why. There was a game, obviously Atari's Asteroids, that Amusement World had made their own version of it called Meteors. There were several differences, and there were a lot of similarities. These things had similar ideas, and the expression, of course, of those ideas wound up being somewhat similar. So the rule of law here is that obviously you can't reproduce someone's work without permission. Step 1, you've got to show ownership on behalf of the plaintiff, Atari. Easy enough, everybody knew about Atari's Asteroids. Step 2, you have to show copying by the defendant. So what Atari tried to do was make basically like a list of features and ideas and similarities that were present in both of them. In return, Amusement World presented two sort of counter arguments that went a little bit like this. And Mr. Nice Guy, I hope you'll tell me what you think of these arguments.
Yeah.
So argument number one, Asteroids is copyrighted as an audiovisual work, but not as a computer program or literary work. And as such, only the visual presentation that they deposited with the Copyright Office, basically the videotape with a single session of Asteroids and the printed off screenshots, more or less, is what was copyrighted and not the underlying game or the underlying ideas. What do you think?
Interesting. I think it's ridiculous. The underlying game and underlying ideas are the sum of all its parts. That is what makes it what it is. It's not just the audio-visual portion that makes it what it is. So I think that that's absurd.
Okay. There's still one more argument they have to make, and that is that Atari, through the creation of the game Asteroids, but most especially through them coming after Amusement World, they are attempting to monopolize the idea of fighting through asteroid fields in spaceships. How do you like that one?
Repeat that last part. They're attempting to
monopolize the very idea of flying through asteroids with spaceships.
I think that's going to be tough. What year did Asteroids come out? I don't even know. I mean, I'm not even going to go too much into detail. It's silly. Let's just leave it at that.
While we didn't necessarily find those arguments, or rather my abbreviation of those arguments, I encourage you all to go and actually read the ruling, because it'll do a better job if you read it rather than just, listening to our, quick rundown here. What the judge found compelling is that it just really isn't enough to observe that there are similarities between two expressions. It's necessary to determine whether or not these came from a similar idea, followed by parallel thinking. And so the judge at the end of this said that, and I'll quote him, quote, based their game on plaintiff's copyrighted game. To put it bluntly, defendants took plaintiff's idea. However, copyright laws do not prohibit this. Copyright protection is available only for expression of ideas, not for ideas themselves. Defendants used plaintiff's idea and those portions of plaintiff's expression that were inexorably tied to that idea. The remainder of defendant's expression is different from the plaintiff's expression. End quote. So basically, this is the first time that we get, at the very least in the video game context, that central tenet that it's the expression that matters, not the idea. The idea is not the copyrightable thing, just the expression of it. And that's how we can have whole genres. And if you try to copyright a genre or the idea, then that's not going to carry the day. So that's just a little bit of legalese for you.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to episode 277 of Two Nerds in a Pod. But before we go, we have one last segment called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing. And before we get into that, Mac, I got to point out to the people, there's a lot of really, really good video game deals going on right now. Humble Bundle, if you're into that type of thing, has Disco Elysium and Chivalry 2 headlining. And anytime I look at top 100 game lists, Disco Elysium almost always on there. I'm told it's phenomenal on the Steam Deck if you like that type of game. And Chivalry 2, a game that a lot of my friends play for dumb fun. I will give the caveat that supposedly Disco Elysium has been through some legal stuff where the IP was purchased and the original creators were kicked out. So I don't know how much of the profit they get from buying it, but I still wanted to bring that game deal to you people. Also, PS5 controllers, currently like $49 if you're looking to back to school PlayStation sale. Mac, but before we go, what we've been watching and what we've been playing, if you're here live, you have a job to do. Let us know in the chat what you're into. And Mac, what have you been watching?
So I've been watching Star Trek Lower Decks and have been loving it. I am looking forward to starting on Star Trek Brave New Worlds. I've heard that it's good. Gosh, what else have I been watching? Honestly, that's been about it. A little bit of YouTube, a little bit of Dimension 20, and that's me. For playing, though, I've been playing a couple of games that I know that we're going to be talking about in the near future, so I'll keep that locked down for the moment. And a little bit of Chasm. Not last week, but the week before, it was the anniversary of its release, so definitely played for a few hours just to kind of, commemorate the event. But yeah, that's what I've been. How about yourself?
Love it. So I'm almost done with Marvel Secret Invasion. I've been watching an episode at a time, and I think I have one more episode to go, and I've really enjoyed it. Some people are saying it's average. I think it's great. I'm really enjoying Samuel L. Jackson's performance there. My wife and I just finished rewatching the first Guardians of the Galaxy, which I haven't watched since it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun to revisit. We'll eventually get to Guardians 3, which is now up on Disney+. And lots of YouTube stuff. Just watched the newest episode of The Game Chasers. I love their content. So fun to watch people collecting old games on YouTube. As far as what I've been playing, Mac, I took the dive. I double dipped and picked up Fallout 76 on the Steam Deck. It was on sale for like $8. Shout out to isthereanydeal.com for helping me find a great price on that game. As a huge Fallout fan, there's a Fallout MMO. I've got to give it a shot. Like, I've played it a little bit on PlayStation when it was free, and I've now picked it up here. Let me scroll through my games. What else have I been playing? That's really it. Stuff that we are going to talk about later, like you said. And then I've been doing some platforming with Pizza Time. Picked that up in the Steam sale. Mac, what are people into in the chat?
Well, let's see. As for watching, Galvatron's been watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Says it's surprisingly good. Barbie, Oppenheimer, Haunted Mansion, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Whereas Ishmael's watching Pirates of the Caribbean, all the movies. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And as for playing, we've got some Deep Rock Galactic, Outer Wilds, Apex Legends, and Unpacking from Ishmael. And Diablo 4, Pentiment, Fist, and I believe that's Forged in Shadow Touched, Final Fantasy 14, and Street Fighter 6.
Nobody playing Baldur's Gate 3. I've heard that game is taking over the world.
I do know that a coworker of mine is playing Baldur's Gate 3 because he was telling me a little bit about it, but he's not here in the chat. So
super excited to have the end of year discussion and see if this is possibly the best year of gaming ever. We'll do that in a few months. But Mac, it's been a fun episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Episode 277. For those who are listening via the Podcast Awards, we appreciate you for checking out our little podcast, and we'd appreciate your vote. Keep it nerdy, y'all. Be excellent to each other. Deuces.
Bye.